Let's talk about Silent Hill 2. If I were compiling a list of the greatest stories in video games, it would be a pretty fucking short list, but at the top would be Planescape Torment and Silent Hill 2. I haven't decided which one is better, but for the sake of argument, let's say that Silent Hill 2 is the best. The almost universal recognition of this game's greatness has caused a lot of speculation among fans about what the series developers were influenced by. The ones usually mentioned include Jacob's Ladder, Phantoms, Twin Peaks, David Lynch, The Mist, Stephen King, Alejandro Jodorowsky, Francis Bacon, etc. But one that I don't hear mentioned enough, especially about Silent Hill 2, is the Soviet film Solaris. Solaris, based on a story by Polish sci-fi author Stanislaw Lem, was made into a movie in 1972 by Andrei Tarkovsky. The movie follows psychologist Chris Kelvin as he investigates a mysterious research station hovering over an ocean on a distant planet. When he arrives, Kelvin finds the station run down and covered in garbage and debris, much less the general dirtiness and dinginess of Silent Hill. The station is soon covered with a thick, impenetrable fog. Ringing any Silent Hill bells yet? Kelvin explores the station, encounters a few bizarre characters, each too busy to speak with him. They are also alarming signs that they are not the only people on the station. When Kelvin goes to sleep that night, he wakes and discovers a guest, as they're called, in his room. It appears to be an exact double of his wife, who committed suicide 10 years before. It seems that the mysterious ocean on the planet started looking into the subconscious minds of humans on the research station. It uses the information there to manifest flesh and blood creatures with the memories and appearance of people the scientists knew in the past. If you haven't noticed the similarities with Silent Hill 2 yet, you haven't played the games. In fact, it wouldn't be going too far to say that Silent Hill 2 is a reimagining or remake of Solaris. Although Solaris is usually called a science fiction movie, upon multiple viewings it takes on more of the aspect of a horror film, especially in the early scenes where Kelvin is wandering around the deserted station, faintly aware of a distant presence trying to interact with him, as well as the movie's final scene, which has a certain dark creepiness about it that I can't explain without watching the movie. Silent Hill 2 is a reinterpretation of this story with a more explicit horror theme. It's unclear in either story whether the ocean Solaris or the vague spiritual presence, whatever that means, is malevolent. Constantly bringing back golems or doppelgangers of the most painful figures in a person's mind could be construed as a type of torture or hell. One of the great things about Solaris is that humans are interacting with an alien that is actually alien. Too often in science fiction, the so-called aliens are humanoids with some ultimately meaningless physical differences. Take a look at Star Trek or Babylon 5 if you want to see some spectacularly human-looking aliens. But the Solaris Ocean is completely ineffable and beyond our ken, like something that is alien should be. In both Silent Hill and Solaris, the weird force creating the subconscious creatures was warped in some way by humans. In Silent Hill, the general nastiness of the town's history, along with the cult's horrific actions involving their god or demon, warped the spiritual presence, while in Solaris the considerably lazier excuse of bombarding the ocean with radiation is given. I happen to believe that in both cases the presence was originally more or less neutral or benevolent. In Solaris, I believe the reason the creatures exist at all is because the ocean is trying in vain to communicate with humanity, but the vast differences between the two groups makes any such attempt impotent and hopeless. Like James Sunderland, Chris Kelvin is forced to witness his wife's death over and over in a number of different agonizing ways. In both game and movie, the main character kills his wife. Whether or not his wife Hari and James's Maria are real thinking, breathing creatures despite their creation from the protagonist's mind is unclear. Both characters seem to be obsessed with their respective men never leaving them alone, perhaps because they wouldn't exist without them. So we don't know how we should feel about the creatures being slaughtered over and over again. The end of Silent Hill 2 suggests that Maria was a monster just like the others in the town, but it's still painful to watch her die over and over again. In short, I love Solaris and think it's one of the greatest sci-fi movies ever made and heartily recommend it. However, the movie is more difficult to get people to watch than it is to dissuade James Sunderland from reaching into a blocked toilet. The pace of Tarkovsky's films was memorably described as being glacial. The movie takes an agonizing 3 hours to plow through. Anyone raised on give the camera to Michael J. Fox and wait 1.2 seconds before each cut in American movies will likely die before getting 15 minutes in. To compound the problem, the first 45 minutes of the movie is a very slow, almost meditative section with very few science fiction elements introducing our fairly melancholic and depressed main character. Again, similarities with James Sunderland. Tarkovsky even said that he intentionally made parts of the opening section boring in order to drive the idiots out of the theater. Solaris is unself-consciously intellectual, with much grand talk about solving the supposed problem of the ocean. While this may be off-putting to people, especially in America, they might miss the point. All that talk of explaining the science fiction is ridiculous and beyond human understanding. Silent Hill 2 is much more directly in the horror genre and includes the monstrous figure of Punishment in Pyramid Head. That Punishment figure is lacking in Solaris. But there are plenty of scenes in Solaris that are creepy and dark, especially the last few minutes, which can creep you out for hours if you think about the implications of what's happening. Watching the two movies is not an identical experience. I don't expect to get the same level of terror a good Silent Hill game will provoke if you watch Solaris, but too fucking bad. If you love Silent Hill 2, you owe it to yourself to watch this movie. It's fantastic, it's great, so go out and get it.